Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Paid Search Strategy Hub. I'm your host, Sarah Stemen, and today we're tackling something that keeps business owners up at night, the rising costs in Google Ads. If you're a business owner and you're running paid ads, you probably noticed that your cost has been increasing. It happens month after month, and your campaigns used to work like clockwork, and they're now barely breaking even. Although that seems extreme, I've talked to business owners where this absolutely is happening. So if this sounds familiar, then let's get started. Here's the thing. It's not necessarily a sign that you're doing something wrong, especially in Google Ads, but there are definitely things that you can do about it. Over the next few minutes, we're going to dive into why costs are rising, bust some myths about the declining ad performance, and give you actionable strategies to stay profitable. So grab your coffee and let's get into it. The reality of rising costs in Google Ads. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Yes, Google Ads costs are rising. And before you start panicking, this is completely normal. It's a supply and demand and economics at play. More businesses are competing for the same keywords, and Google's auction systems naturally drive prices up. But here's where I see business owners make their very first mistake. They assume that this means their campaigns are completely broken and Google Ads doesn't work for them. I had a client call me last week in a total panic. Sarah, our cost per click has doubled in 6 months. Our campaigns must be not working. They're terrible. When I dug into the data and did an audit of their account, the conversion rates were actually higher. And I looked deeper, and the issue actually wasn't their campaigns and their Google Ads setup. It was that they hadn't adjusted their expectations or strategy for the new reality that they were in. The good news is they had been optimizing the campaigns over time, and they had been picking better and better keywords that were more aligned for where their clients were. But naturally, those keywords were more expensive because there was more competition there. And here is what the successful business advertisers understand. PPC has always been about optimization, but when costs rise, you optimize and then you continue to optimize. And the increase in costs sometimes can actually be a good thing. It means you're getting more quality. So in this case, when I dug in, I saw a few terms that were in a bidding war with another brand. And that's where another brand comes in and is pushing up the prices. And so what we did is we actually paused those keywords because we felt like those keywords still were not the best aligned keywords, and we just didn't want to participate in the bidding war. We put a label in them and we told the business owner, watch these, see what happens, maybe turn them back on and try them in a couple months. But for now, let's opt out of that competition that's driving up those costs and having those keywords ultimately spend your money, but not for the best return. So when the competition is increasing, you need to get smarter. And this isn't new. We've always done this in the industry. It's just the automated bidding algorithms make us not see these as clearly. But in this case, looking at that auction insights report, we could see these competitors coming in and out. So the key is not to panic, but to adapt, dive into your data, and learn how to respond in a little bit of a better manner. This is exactly what we're going to talk about next, the innovation myth. Now, let me share something that actually might surprise you. And I hear regularly from PPC experts that Google Ads performance has declined over the past couple of years. But when I audit their accounts, I often find something interesting. These businesses actually haven't changed their product, their offer, or their messaging in quite some time, sometimes years. But they're changing the keywords in the ad campaigns. So you're adjusting the ad campaigns, the input, but you're not really addressing what's on the other side, which is the business and that landing page. So think about it this way. If your competitor is launching a new product or is changing how they present their service or their offering, and your product has stayed the same, you're really losing out. And when I was looking at one client, I saw that they hadn't made these changes in about 5 years. So whose fault is that really when the ads start underperforming? Ultimately, it was their fault. I actually also worked with a software company recently that was convinced Google Ads had stopped working. But when I looked at their landing page, they were actually identical to what they had in 2020 during the pandemic. The customer's frame of mind was different then. And so meanwhile, their competitors had started updating their offerings and their user experience was different, and they were speaking to the current market needs, which is in 2025, a tougher economy. And the hard truth was, if you're not innovating and you're not looking at the other areas of your marketing, your product development, your customer experience, your value prop, which should in 2025 look different than what you were offering in 2020, then you're losing. You're sending all this traffic there and your performance on the PPC side is going to decline no matter how perfectly your campaigns are optimized and how much you're doing the absolute right things. This is why I always tell my clients that successful advertising isn't just about campaign optimization. It's about having something worth advertising and continue to evolve on that based on what you're seeing in the platform. So it's a two-way street. You're optimizing your campaigns, and then you're looking at your landing page and what's happening on the back end and going back and through that iterative process. This isn't a situation always of broken ads. You can't optimize your way out of stale offerings. The businesses thriving today aren't just running better ads, they're offering better solutions and letting the data from the ads feed their business to drive better experiences and better value to their customers with, again, what people need in 2025. So now let's get tactical. So we're going to talk about the common mistakes that I am seeing in Google Ads, since that's what my channel is about. In my experience of auditing hundreds of accounts, I tend to see the same mistakes over and over again, which still surprised me. These mistakes become even more costly and amplified as the CPCs are rising. So the first thing I see, and I've talked about it in many of the episodes before, and I will continue to talk about it, is a poor match strategy. I cannot tell you how many accounts I review where the broad match keywords are absolutely hemorrhaging budget on irrelevant searches. And what's worse or different, it's the opposite problem, is that I have a client using the exact match so restrictively that they're missing out on all these potential customers. So I'm going to give you a very quick example. I had a client that was selling project management software, very, very simple, straightforward software. And they were bidding on project management as an exact match keyword as a SCAG. Now, exact isn't as exact, and yes, it brings in extra things. And so to an extent, this was smart, except they really should have been adding terms for searches like management tools, project management software, and added that extra context versus having a SCAG, even best project management platform. The reason is these are all highly relevant, and our ad groups at this point add that context. And often those variations will align better to the ad copy and trigger that exact match query that the user's putting in. So if you, for example, were to put in best project management software, and then your ad says best project management software, you essentially are having that psychological reinforcement of that exact term that that exact person typed in that is really going to give them that, oh my gosh, it feels like this advertiser knows me significance on the SERF. It also helps with your ad relevance and some of those cost issues as well. The second issue that I see is poor audience targeting, or more commonly, no audience targeting at all. Google gives you incredible data about who's visiting your website, who's similar, who's your best customers, who's actively researching your competitors. They have really good in-market audiences, affinity audience. Yet most campaigns that I'm auditing, I'm not seeing the advertiser using any of this data. You can add audiences back into your campaigns either to target. So you can say, I want to target this in-market audience. I want to target this affinity audience, and then create search campaigns on top of those to make things a little bit smaller. Or you can go ahead and put all these audience and all this data that Google's giving you, feed it back in under observation mode, and give that algorithm more data to work with. That this is what my ideal customer looks like. They're into yoga. They like healthy food. They're cooking at home. And then you're advertising your product, telling Google to go after those types of people for your campaigns. These are especially important when you're looking at the performance backs and these campaigns that are going full funnel, because that bottom of the funnel is looking for that new, colder audience to attract to your business. So the more data that you feed in about your ideal customer, the more research you do about your customer and put that into the platforms, the better your campaigns are going to be. And when you think about it, would you rather pay $5 to reach someone who's never heard of your industry or isn't in market, or $8 to reach someone who's visited your competitors, is shopping, they're currently active, and they've maybe hit a pricing page a couple times this month and are actively in market? The math usually favors that more expensive targeted click, I'll tell you that. So here's a big one. If you're really only focused on cold traffic, just the brand new people that haven't even heard of your business or aren't necessarily aware, you're kind of going to start losing to those comprehensive funnels, because they're not just trying to convert someone, they're nurturing someone, they're building trust, they're staying ahead and feeding that funnel as part of that journey. So just something to think about. Also, a last thing I want to talk about, and this one's harder, but sometimes Google ads just don't make sense. So, yes, costs are rising. And a lot of PPC experts won't tell you this. I've seen agencies take on clients like this. But the reality is, Google doesn't make sense for every business. As a consultant, I'm able to come forth and say things like this because I am not charging for a management fee and enticed to take your business when I don't feel like it'll work. I just get to have you pay me, do a consulting call, and tell you really quickly the math isn't mathing, and have you get on your happy way. So with the rising costs, the truth is becoming even more apparent. I regularly chat with companies who are exploring Google Ads or thinking about trying it. And when we dig into the details with their close rates, their lifetime values, their sales cycles, sometimes the math just doesn't work. I'm going to give you an example. I was talking to a B2B company last month, and they were selling a service, a consulting service. Their average deal size was $2,000. So pretty big, but definitely not as big as the CPCs. They actually had a very long sales cycle, 9-month sales cycle, and they were closing at a rate of around 3%, but sometimes lower. And the leads that they were getting in their industry, they average a cost per click around $35. So what was happening is the website conversion rates, which to be fair, were, like I said, in the 2 to 3%, it just didn't add up. So if I did the quick math, to get one sale, they'd need over 600 clicks. And that would be about a 3% conversion rate and a 5% close rate. So if, for example, they were even at like about a $15 per click, they're going to need like $10,000 in ad spend to generate that $2,000 ad sale, right? And so if their lifetime value was 25,000, maybe they could make that work. But in their case, their lifetime value was closer to that $3,000 mark. And so the numbers just didn't really add up. And I'm not making this point to scare you away from Google Ads. I'm making this point to make sure that you're being realistic about your expectations when you look at your business and if this is the right channel for your business model. Because sometimes in consulting and software, and some of those high ticket one-on-one consulting type roles, your best solution is organic and content marketing and expertise marketing as opposed to buying Google Ads. And so here are some strategies to help you with success and what you need to do if you're committed to making Google Ads work in this higher cost environment that we're in. So I'm going to share some strategies that are working for my clients right now. And the first one is really what I said earlier. Get really, really serious about your audience strategy. Make sure you start with your website visitors. So these are people who've already taken the time to interact with your business. Maybe they're reading your blog, but they didn't convert. It is worth paying more to reach those customers again. Layer those audiences. Layer those into your Performance Max campaigns, your demand gen campaigns. And then also see if you can target some of these customers with some additional search ads. It's refining and pulling in who's already seen your ads. Second, improve your entire funnel, not just your ads. Again, I see too many businesses trying to optimize their way into profitability while sending traffic to a landing page that converts at 1%. Sometimes the biggest ROI comes from improving that website, not your campaigns. Make it really, really, really crystal clear what they need to do when they get to that landing page. And third, expand your keyword strategy thoughtfully. You don't just want to bid on more keywords, you want to bid on the right keywords. So focus on that buyer intent, those long tail variations or larger scope variations, or maybe pull your scope back, and the questions that your customers are actually asking about your business. And the last thing, and this is the most critical, measure what matters. Don't really get caught up in cost per click, even though I spent an entire video talking about cost per click rising, or even at this point, click-through rates. There's sometimes when click-through rates don't make sense because you don't want the wrong customers clicking on your ad. Focus on that cost per acquisition and that ROAS, because sometimes paying more for click actually improves your profitability. And finally, last but not least, diversify your traffic sources. Google Ads shouldn't be your only customer acquisition channel. The businesses that are thriving right now in 2025 have multiple streams. They're doing content marketing. They're active on YouTube. They're active on social media. They're building email lists. They're doing it all. And this gives them leverage when negotiating with any single platform. They know how their email converts. They know how their social converts. and they're creating that content and that basically push to their website. And so they know what to expect when looking at Google Ads, and they are set up better to optimize for these audiences and the traffic that they're getting. Here is the bottom line. Rising costs in Google Ads aren't going to go anywhere, but neither are the opportunities for smart advertisers who are willing to adapt and change with the times. The key really is to stop thinking about this as a problem and start thinking as a marketing evolution. We are a mature market at this point. The businesses that thrive are going to be the ones that innovate their offerings. They innovate their campaigns, they look at the funnels, and they get strategic about targeting in the ad platform. I think one of the biggest benefits of Google Ads is it's feeding you data. You can turn around and use that data to evolve your business. If today's resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe to the show because we will be taking a deep dive into more topics like this every single week, giving you the insights that you need to stay ahead in the ever-changing world of paid search marketing. If you're struggling with your own Google Ads campaigns, do not hesitate to reach out. Sometimes a fresh perspective, getting on a call with someone like me, is all you need to turn things around. I currently offer 1-hour power hours where you can get your Google Ads questions answered super fast and tailored to your business. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in another episode of the Paid Search Strategy Hub, and I look forward to seeing you in the comments. Happy marketing.